It's dark in here today.
Okay, here we go, Celeste. So good morning, everybody, and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another one of our Facebook Lives. I'm Laura Hunter from Drop the Leash Dog Training. This is Celeste Gagnon, also from Drop the Leash Dog Training. And we are here today to talk about living with reactive dogs, because not only do we teach a program about dealing with reactivity, we actually deal with it in our own lives. So we thought today we'd talk about our experiences and maybe develop a little credibility that we know what we're doing. But we're also happy today to admit there are times when we don't know what we're doing, because it's tough sometimes. So anyway, we just wanted to talk about what we've learned along the way, and maybe can help some of you out who are just starting out, realizing your dog's reactive. And if there are any of our clients out there listening, anybody from our Walks at Work program, any of our guys with reactive dogs, please do feel free to comment as we go along, because it's always good to for everybody to know they've got some community support for this. You do need support when you have a reactive dog. We don't want anybody to feel like they're the only one out there with a dog like this. And that's one of the other reasons we're talking about it today, so that you guys know that trainers actually also have reactive dogs. So we just we'll break this down into some different segments here. Maybe the first thing, and Celeste and I will both be talking today, because we both come from both our lives are very different, and our lives with our dogs are very different. So we can give you two perspectives on this, not just one. So first, give you a little bit of background. When did we first realize that there was something different about our dogs? Because that is a big moment, and many of you might think, oh my goodness, this just doesn't seem quite right, but not really understand what you're dealing with. So in my case, I first met Maddie when she was only 3 weeks old, and at that point, I thought there was something going on. I thought there was, she just wasn't quite the bubbly, outgoing puppy that the rest of her litter was, and was a little bit skittish when I picked her up and tried to interact with her, which, kind of thought about it. That's okay. They're 3 weeks, they're just babies. But I remember going back to pick her up again at 8 weeks and sitting in the room being a little bit hysterical, because I had the only puppy that wouldn't come out from under the table. I thought, okay, I'm going to take this puppy home now, and I think there's an issue. But, the breeders just kept saying, it's okay, she's just quiet, she's a deep thinker. And at that point, I had no idea about reactivity and anything, how to see it, how to diagnose it, what it was even about. So, but I did have the sense that there was something going on, even that early in life. So what about you, Celeste? What about you and Penny?
Yeah, as a puppy, she was always very quiet, more of the observer than the participant, but she wasn't hiding like Maddie. So I didn't really, I'm not sure I would have recognized that anyway at the time, because I wasn't very aware of any of this either. She started barking and lunging a few months before she turned 1. And that's when I thought, I got to figure out how to deal with this, or, fix it before she grows full size, because I'm like, a full size German Shepherd that barks and lunges is not something I wanted to deal with.
No.
So I don't think I knew of the concept of reactivity at that time necessarily. I just knew that potentially this would be a hard thing for me to deal with if I didn't figure out how to deal with it like now.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's hard for people. They think, oh my goodness, there might be something wrong with my dog. They might have some kind of an issue, but I don't know what to name it. I don't know what to call it. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah. And I'll admit that at that time, before she turned 1 and she started behaving that way, I was looking for the fix to stop it. Like, I thought it would be like, I just have to do something and then she won't do that anymore. for the rest of her life, kind of thing. You know, that concept of this is just her wasn't there at that time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not even sure what I was thinking at that point, because I had 3 of them at that point and wasn't really focusing on Maddie. And Maddie seemed perfectly fine when I brought her home. And actually, just a little background for anybody that doesn't know us.
Oh, yes.
Between the 2 of us, we have 5 herding dogs. I've got 3 Aussies. I have a 10-year-old and 2 8-year-olds. And Celeste has a German Shepherd and a Corgi. Penny is how old, Celeste?
She's 5.
And Gimli's 3. So we have, multiple dog households. So just to give you some background on that. And so, we both had very different experiences. I noticed right away you weren't too sure about Penny. So what actually does cause reactivity? And it can be, I know this because I actually went to school and learned things, that it can be genetic. If the mother is fearful, she can pass the fear on to the puppies. Even if the mother is just stressed in pregnancy, you can end up with fearful puppies. It can be learned through a traumatic or frightening event. It's a learned experience in puppyhood or when they're older. And sometimes maybe it can be a combination of both. So sometimes it's hard to determine. And I'm not even sure we need to, other than, we're always looking for information. I think, I saw it in Maddie so early at 3 weeks. Like, to me, that's almost a genetic thing. Although, I remember talking to Dr. Pockel about it, and he said, puppies can have traumatic experiences, right from birth. And sometimes he actually said even just a puppy catching a toenail in a crack or in the crate and experiencing that pain, it could be, something that stays with them for life. So I'm not sure. I do think hers is genetic, but who knows? Penny, what do you think on Penny?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know her fear was because of a bad socialization incident, or I believe it was when she was a puppy. But because she's a German Shepherd and she's a working line, I don't know if she had that potential to be a reactive dog right from the start. She's hyper vigilant. She does have some anxiety. So it's hard to tell. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a breeder, so I don't know enough about German Shepherd breed to know if this is everybody. But from the German Shepherds I've met, they all have that suspicion or caution around strangers and strange dogs, and they all seem to have that. So maybe it's a breed predisposition, and then it was made worse by an incident. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't go to school for it.
I know. You know what? I've talked to Dr. Puckle, and if anybody knows, it's him. He's a vet behaviorist, and he couldn't tell me. And I also have I have Aussies, and Aussies are known to be spooky. And I remember somebody who was not very happy about me going off and buying Aussies and said to me, well, you got a 50-50 chance of, getting something with an issue. And actually I came out pretty good at only 33% because the other 2 are fine. Who knows? And then, I also have to say that Maddie, certainly as a puppy, she was fine with the other dogs, like our dogs, but then, hit social maturity. And all of a sudden I have a dog who's attacking my other dogs and who's attacking them in a very serious way. So where is that coming from? And is that a fear-based behavior, and is social maturity a factor in reactivity as well? There's just so many different places it can come from. And the only thing that I think that we can definitively say for people is who may have reactive dogs is that the one thing that we know is we didn't cause it. So most owners should not feel guilty that, oh my God, what have I done to create this dog? Because, you know, we hear that all the time from people who are coming to the program. What did I do to create this dog?
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy for owners to take the blame for it. My thought always is, I didn't give birth to the dog, so, you know, you can't fault me if it's a genetic issue. But I honestly, you know, what am I trying to say? Should an owner recognize it? Should owners be able to see this in their dogs? No, because, you know, you and I were on the fence about it ourselves. And, who, you know, they're not to blame if they miss seeing something in their puppy. To me, there's just maybe dog trainers need to take a lot of responsibility for this, because there is a lot of misinformation about there. There's a lack of knowledge on the part of some dog trainers about reactivity, and maybe not thinking it's important enough to pass it on. Whereas you and I now in our puppy groups, we're always talking about it.
Yeah.
We're always talking to our clients about preventive measures that they can take to, you know, to forestall it. Certainly socialization is a huge issue, you know, and a big component of preventing reactivity possibly down the road. You know, socialization is about teaching our dogs that, yeah, great, other dogs are okay, that's fine, I see other dogs. But we also know it's also, there's a component there where we want our dogs to see other dogs, but not necessarily have to go meet every dog on the planet, which can also cause reactivity. So, you know, I don't think any owner should feel guilty about it. So if there's anybody listening who has a reactive dog, please do not feel guilty about it. And both of us went out there and socialized our dogs, seriously. Because we did have some inkling that, you know, there was something going on. And I think both of us socialized our dogs to the best of our ability. We took them to programs specifically to socialize them. And both of us experienced incidents in those programs, which, well, I know for Maddie was precipitating, totally precipitated that reactivity. You know, we went to a program. I was doing some counter conditioning with her to feel good about being with other dogs. 2 other dogs were taken off leash while we were sitting watching a class, and they started wrestling. Both of them like totally slammed my poor puppy into the ground, and she came up totally hysterical, and that was the end of it for her and other dogs. And up until then, I've been making progress. Like, we were kind of on the fence. So that just pushed her off to the wrong side of the fence. And I specifically remember, as I was dragging the screaming dog to my car, somebody in the program mentioning, this is what you get when you buy an aggressive Aussie. So, you know, yeah, I know. So, you know, I know a lot of really amazing trainers who feel like we do, that, you know, reactivity is important and we need to talk about it in puppyhood and we need to take measures, but not every training program, addresses it or even understands it. And I think you had a somewhat similar incident. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, I had Penny in a older puppy program, because at that point she was, I guess, 3 or 4 months, so she was bigger. And at the beginning of the class, they would have this free time puppy play, so they could kind of run around and smell each other and do what dogs do. But Penny, again, was not the puppy that wanted to play with everybody. She was fine sitting in a room and watching and being around other dogs, but she didn't want to get in there and wrestle. And I think all these dogs, I don't know, they want to play with everybody because they're puppies. And so they'd come see her, and then she would run away and they would chase her, and she would be chased for that entire 5-minute period. And I was told not to interrupt, because especially because she was a German Shepherd and she needed to learn to be okay with other dogs. I mean, now we know about I mean, there was no concept of consent tests at the time when I was there, and pulling her and seeing if she actually wanted to participate in that. I could tell she didn't, but again, I wasn't knowledgeable enough in that, and I trust the trainer at the time to make the decision. And I really think it was the wrong one. So she did that for like the whole course. Every week for the whole course, she got put in that scenario where she was the one chased into a corner and then kind of just cornered there, and I wasn't allowed to do anything, and she just kind of had to fend for herself. And it was, thinking back, it's so terrible now.
So would you say that was the start of?
I think that would be the thing that caused the fear.
Yeah. So I guess a public service announcement here we're trying to put out is your puppy should always feel safe, should always be in an environment. And that's what we try and teach in the puppy program to everybody. Mm-hmm. When we bring puppies down to the field, if they do not want to come through the gate, into the mayhem, they don't have to.
Yeah.
And we try and say to your owners, the most important thing for your puppy to grow up to be a confident dog who can take things in stride is to know that they can be safe. They can trust you to keep them safe, and that they won't get pushed into a situation. And, we won't describe consent tests, but really consent tests are really important. That, if a puppy's being bullied or harassed, you pull the other one out and see, and your puppy gets to choose whether they want to stay or whether they want to go. And Penny didn't get that choice.
No, and I mean, she never got hurt. She was never bit or hurt or anything. She was never even wrestled with. She was just cornered.
Yeah.
But that was enough for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And the two dogs that Maddie, they were just playing, they were wrestling,
Yeah.
just rolled over top of her. But and that's where I sometimes think that there was a genetic predisposition there with our dogs anyway, because how many dogs have I seen jump on Rosie and wrestle her to the ground, or grab her by the throat or anything else, and Rosie goes, fine, I'm okay, I'm over it, I told them off, and that's okay. She's very resilient, whereas our dogs don't seem to have that.
No, they're not
resilient. I don't think there's a gene for resilient, but there's something there they just don't have. Everything for our guys is a major tragedy, and maybe that's just who they are, and maybe it's who they've always been. So, the other thing is that we know, and we have learned, that people do not understand that reactivity, and I wish we could come up with a different term for it, but it's all we've got. It's not a specific deliberate behavior on the dog's part. It's an emotional response to something. Both our dogs can look quite fierce at times and quite threatening. We know that it's coming from a place of fear. And one of the biggest issues for owners is that people out in the world see our dogs in those situations where they are barking and lunging. And they're barking and lunging usually because something is too close to them, and it's something scary that's too close to them, and they're just trying to send it away. And if we can manage the situation, we don't get that. But sometimes you and I both know, the world is not under control. So people think, oh my God, look at that behavior. Somebody said to me once, oh, you own one of those vicious dogs. And she's like the furthest thing from a vicious dog, but people see it as deliberate aggression or viciousness. And so they think what we need to do is to suppress that behavior, to make our dogs stop behaving like that. And we also know that there are trainers out in the world who feel that the way to deal with reactivity is to suppress it as well, suppress the behavior. But we know it doesn't work. And it's not like we're doing a dump on the trainer day. We're just stating facts here, is that you can go on YouTube and see trainers who punish or suppress those behaviors, and it doesn't work. You can't.
It's temporary.
Yeah, and it's if you keep suppressing somebody's emotional response to something, eventually, human or dog, they're going to blow.
Yeah.
Plus, which is it's really. I'm sure, I'm assuming, because I'm sure it's this way in humans and dogs, that if you keep suppressing, you keep preventing people from expressing an honest emotion, it's going to be so stressful after a while that it's just going to make the whole situation worse. I've had people tell me that I should put Maddie down because, well, not people, but one person in particular said to me, he said, if I was you, I'd just put that dog down. You shouldn't live with a dog whose behavior is that horrible. So, I don't even respond to those things anymore. Celeste, sorry, I've lost Celeste here. You frozen. So, you've got a big, fierce looking German Shepherd.
Yeah, I know. She doesn't even have to do anything and people cross the road.
Yeah.
And actually, it's funny because when she was younger, she was reactive to people and dogs. And now we've managed to make it only dogs, but people will still cross the road if they see her, even if she's just walking. I mean, she's big and she's a dark dog and she's a German Shepherd. So they have a reputation already. Yeah.
And she has a big bark.
She has a big bark.
Yeah. Maddie has an ear piercing yap. Mm-hmm. But both of them, it's ironic to us because both of them are two of the most gentle dogs that you ever want to meet,
Yeah.
In fact, they're giant socks, really.
Yes, they're big babies. Yeah. And they're extremely sensitive. Yeah. Like Penny, I mean, I can't even imagine doing any kind of suppression on her because I think it would break her. Honestly, she's way too sensitive for any kind of hard hand. Yeah.
They would just fall apart totally if we tried any sort of aversive techniques.
I could never even imagine.
So if you have a fearful dog or a reactive dog, we've learned this is that you have to address the emotion, not the behavior. And we also know that there are times when it is really hard to wrap your head around the fact that your dog, who looks like Cujo, can actually be a frightened dog.
Yeah.
I had a huge problem when Maddie started attacking Rosie and Annie. I had a really hard time with that. Not that I was angry with Maddie or, thought, oh, it's a bad dog. It's just, I started to question whether it was fear-based. And I still sometimes question that, except that I look at her and she's a dog who's afraid of cheese tubes because sometimes they make splatting noises, and she's afraid of bugs every spring, and she's afraid of body handling. So, I just have to take it on faith that there was something that, triggered fear of two dogs that she lived quite happily with for 2 years. It doesn't make much sense. There's a lot of times when their behavior just doesn't really make much sense. And you have to keep telling yourself that your dog isn't aggressive. I know that, they would still get into a brawl, and it would be just as horrific as the one that, the last one they had so many years ago. But you have to keep telling yourself your dog is not aggressive, that they do need your help to feel safe, that when they are acting aggressively, they're scared and they're not sure, and they're just trying to protect themselves. So they need our help to feel safe. They need our help to teach them to make better choices as to how they respond. And they really need us to arrange their environment and control their environment to give them some relief from the stress of being afraid. And I think that's huge. I think that you and I talk a lot about, trigger stacking and how stressed they are and how their day was the day before, and what we do at home with our dogs just to change their environment so that they have some relief from being stressed all the time.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that too is that I'm not sure that there's too many people out there that can do this without professional help.
Not do it correctly.
No, because I remember when I first started looking into what I could do with Maddie, this was before I went to the academy, and there was information out there on counter conditioning and desensitization, how to change your dog's emotional state so they feel better. But there's a lot of mixed messages out there as well. And, certainly going to Jean Donaldson's Academy, that was a big game changer for me, because we spent a whole year on dealing with fear and aggression, and they drilled it into us how to deal with it. So without that, I think I might have stumbled through, but it really helped to have that education, and to really have to learn to address fear and aggression in a scientific, positive reinforcement way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what about you, Celeste?
I had done a bit of counter conditioning and desensitization with her. I kind of got half my information from the same place I went to that caused the issue.
That's great.
And then I kind of tried to do my own based on reading that I've done. But I mean, most of it I learned from you. We've been hanging out for a very long time now.
Yes.
So I would say most of it I got from there. And then you and I have done a lot of webinars and fear and aggression seminars and stuff together that I've learned a lot from there as well. So we're kind of like building our toolkit here for
sure,
for handling and for management, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember when you brought Penny to agility the first time.
I don't think she was even one yet.
Yeah.
Or she had just turned one. Yeah.
Yeah. And you didn't know what you were doing, but then I didn't know what I was doing either. So I'm not, making judgment there. But you picked it up really quick, and as soon as you picked it up, it made a huge difference in her in agility. Like, she comes to an agility class now, with other dogs, and we can pretty much throw any other dog into the class at this point, and you guys have totally nailed it. And that's the other thing, is that we both have put our dogs into activities deliberately to build confidence.
Yes.
And that's super important.
Yeah.
You can't just hide a reactive dog from the world, because it's not fair to them to, whether we hide them from the world or take them out in the world. I still think that they have stress, they have lack of confidence, So for both our dogs, agility, I think, has been really important, super important.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a few things with Penny, but agility is the one that we both enjoy the most. I think that, I mean, again, she's a working dog. I think that if I didn't let her exercise that, her frustration level would be high, and that would just add to the reactivity. So I think confidence building, it's great. It also gives her an outlet to do what her brain wants to do. And
they feel good about being successful.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at Penny now, when she first came to agility, she wouldn't go up the A-frame.
She wouldn't.
She went up the A-frame. We were like beside ourselves, and then you look at her, she runs like a German Shepherd. She looks amazing.
Yeah.
And Maddie was like that when I started too. Maddie would go over 2 jumps, and she'd look at me and go, "I'm done now. I can't deal with this. This is like emotionally exhausting." And now she runs as well as my other 2 dogs. She has huge distance, which means she has huge confidence. So it doesn't have to be agility. It can be scent. Scent is great. You and I are now into scent for other dogs, because scent is something you can do at home with your dog that still builds, confidence. Heck, you can do agility in your backyard with a couple of cones and a jump or 2. So scent work is good as well, tracking any of that stuff. But it is important, I think, to build or find something for our dogs that builds their confidence. Even, just basic obedience training or rally. Just something that they are good at, that they can learn to be good at. It's like people need to learn to be good at stuff to feel good.
It's that, and also as a handler, owner, parent, whatever you want to call yourself, it helps you learn to read your dog.
Yes.
And I think that's huge also.
Yes.
To be that kind of like in a team with your dog instead of just in charge of your dog.
Yes.
I think that's also really critical for reactive dog owners.
Yes. Or just out walking your dog.
Yeah.
Just like kind of hanging out with your dog. I
Yeah.
know, and I know for a fact from a lot of our students that it is really tempting when you have a reactive dog just to stay home and hang out with them, because it's just so hard to go out and face the world. But just hanging out with them is not the same thing that we do. I know there are days when our dogs don't go out. I know, especially for you, because you're in that busy urban area.
Yeah.
So if you think Penny's stressed, you don't take her out, but you stay home and do training with her.
Yes.
You know, yeah, which is not the same thing as just staying home and hanging out with your dog.
No.
You know, they
Sometimes I wish we had that.
Yeah, I know. Well, we need to stop buying herding dogs, don't we?
We do. Yeah.
Are you and I looking at working lines on herding dogs?
I know.
And bookmarking them these days. So no, it's never going to happen, Celeste. But anyway, so and the point too is that a lot of people when they come to us say to us, we need you to fix the dog. The dog needs to be fixed. How do we fix our dog? And the one thing that you and I are adamant about is that our dogs aren't really broken. Both our dogs are amazing dogs who just happen to struggle with fear and anxiety in specific situations. Mm-hmm. It doesn't rule their entire lives. It's not, 95% of what they are. It's probably 5% of what they are. And they are both really well-trained, easy dogs to live with for the most part. To be honest, Maddie's easier to live with around here than the other two are, because she's just kind of chilled and will do whatever I want her to do and hang out in the backyard and trot along with me in the forest. And the other two are like two sort of, I don't know, high needs toddlers. So, they are pretty chilled dogs. They don't need to be fixed in any way. We just need to address that specific situation in which they have difficulty. And unfortunately, when we go out in the world, if we were left on our own to take our dogs for a walk, we would probably have fewer issues. But the problem is that people don't understand when we say, sorry, our dogs don't want to meet you. Our dogs don't want to meet your dog. No, they just need to meet our dog. They'll get over all this. No, my dog's friendly type thing. Or why can't we come closer? So that's not necessarily our dogs being broken. It's just there's a lot of, most of the world does not understand what they need. They just have not special needs, but they just have particular needs so that it can be okay.
Yeah, I think it's almost like our expectations and the world's expectations of dogs are completely out of tune with what dogs actually are.
Yes.
And that's part of it. So, I mean, we have to advocate for our dogs even more because they have sensitivities that other dogs don't necessarily have. And it's hard for people to understand because everybody imagines the Disney dog. We were talking about that this morning too, right?
Yeah. Yes. And you can't. The other thing is, I go back to the fact that it's not a deliberate behavior; it's an emotional response. Right. And you can't fix an emotional response because an emotional response isn't wrong. Mm-hmm. It might not be the most appropriate response in the world at the time, but it is an honest, true representation of what our dogs are feeling. So that doesn't mean they're broken. It just means that, they are afraid, and we can either try to help them feel better through counter conditioning about the fearful thing, or we can teach them to make different choices as to how they respond. Yes. And, we can, they're not doing anything wrong. No. They really aren't, so, for all of you guys out there, again, with reactive dogs, your dogs aren't broken. Don't feel that they're broken and they need to be fixed. The other component to that is that you and I both know and have learned that we can reduce their reactive responses. We can manage their reactive responses, but neither of us are under any illusion Maddie's 8, Penny's 3, that either of these dogs are going to be the Disney dog who runs off and plays with other dogs.
Right.
You know, or even wants to be within 50 miles of another dog, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maddie doesn't even want to be with the 2 in the house, and we're all okay with that. All of us are okay with that. But the Disney dog thing is not going to work for either of our guys at all, you know. So this is stuff that we are going to be working on for the rest of their lives, I think, you know.
Yeah. I mean, even when part of the training is done, you still have to live within what they can handle. And I think that's important. Like, that might never change. For me, I think with Penny, she'll always need distance from other dogs. She'll never be the dog that wants to go to the dog park and run around.
No.
And I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Because she's okay with that. She doesn't feel like she's missing anything. She's happier walking by herself somewhere.
Yeah. And I think for both of us, that was a big learning curve, was the fact that we had to sort of put aside what we envisioned for our dogs and go with what was okay for them.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, I would love Maddie. Like, I think about, you know, the fact that for 2 years, I had 3 dogs running around my backyard playing and happy to be with each other. They slept in the same crates half the time. And I won't have that anymore. But, you know, the 3 of them don't care. In fact, I think they're all happier. Like, you know, Ruthie and Annie are quite close, but I think they're all happier the way it is at this point. I don't see any of them getting up in the morning and saying to me, hey, let's all be friends today. You know, and so, you know, we have a system in the house. We manage it. Everybody, as soon as Maddie comes in, everybody goes to their crates. We don't have to say anything anymore, and they're all happy just to avoid each other. So if they're happy to avoid each other, I just need to dump that whole fantasy that I had, and we just deal with it. Yeah. And it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal anymore. You know. I don't think it is. Not around here. It's only a big deal if somebody messes up, and then it's a real big deal. So it's not a big deal for us just to have all that management in place. And you know, I think you said something about the fact that you're happy to keep on working with Penny.
Yeah.
Training is just, it is what it is. You have a different situation than I do. I deal with it in the house, and you have to deal with it out in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I do it in the house to a certain degree, but I don't have fighting between 2 dogs. I just have barking at windows and fences and stuff. But yeah, the training is, I think once you change your mind about it being training or a chore or fixing something, and you just see it as playing with your dog and working with your dog, I think it becomes a lot more fun. Yeah. And so making it just part of your day-to-day life and habit is not, it's just playing with your animal. I mean, that's why you get a pet, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You
just play with it differently than somebody else would play with their dog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the interesting thing is that when we have people coming into the course, their life, I like to think we change their life with their dog. You know, I think everybody at this point has realized that the life that they envision with their dog isn't going to happen, and people are pretty demoralized about it. Mm-hmm. You know, just as there were certain regrets that we had. But what I've noticed is that as we go through the Walks at Work course, is that people in the course start to become more critical about other dogs and people out in the world, and they end up critiquing other people and dogs for poor behaviors out in the world. And I start to hear, well, my dog was great, but the other dog was lunging and barking, and it makes them feel better to see how much better their dogs are, because there's no doubt that that course it's a lot of work. It's not difficult, but it is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And we teach our students that this is something that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. And so people think, oh my God, I'm always going to be doing this. But the payoff is that you often end up with a dog who is really, really well trained and well behaved out in the world. And both our dogs are. I've seen you in front of the arena with other dogs passing by, and you and I are having a conversation, and you're just not even realizing you're playing the orientation game or something with Penny, and Penny's just like, yeah, I'm chilled, here I am. Mm-hmm. And then we look at all the dogs walking up the driveway, and they're like dragging their owners into the arena. So not being critical of guys, not being critical, but no. we don't have a choice, so we do it, but there is a payoff. In the long run, is that we end up with these amazing dogs. And I think we are more tuned into our dogs emotionally because we have to deal with their issues. And we have to spend so much time working with them. But we've got great dogs. Like when I look at all the skills that Penny and Maddie have, certainly our other dogs have skills too, but they're really amazing dogs. They really are. So there is an upside to it, and all we end up just maintaining that, as their lives go on. Mm-hmm. So as you said, it just becomes a way of the world, for sure. So there are downsides to having a reactive dog, but I think in the long run, what everybody needs to know that if you find professional help, if you go out and find a trainer who knows what they're doing and uses positive reinforcement, you do get through it. It'll never totally be resolved, but you can always reduce it. You can learn to live with it. And in the end, you might be really surprised at how amazing the dog is that you have. I was thinking of Wendy. I don't know if Wendy's listening today. Wendy, who had, I can't remember the name of her dog. And Wendy used to send us all the videos.
Oh yeah, her Aussie.
No, that was Kathy. No, oh. Wendy, she had sort of some sort of pity bull cross.
Okay.
And she used to send us and very strong and really pulled her everywhere. And she thought, I'm never going to be able to do this. And then she sent us a video several weeks later, and the dog heals like a champion obedience dog. When she goes outside, the dog never pulls on the leash, walks right beside her. Yeah. And there are people out there that would kill to have that, have their dog be able to do that. And then that's one of the things that we have to do with our dogs, is we have to teach them in a lot of situations that they do walk beside us, because we need to be able to control the situation, not necessarily control the dog, but control the situation so the dog can make the choices that we want them to. Mm-hmm. So, people from, who have gone through any of these reactive dog programs often end up with dogs who are so good at that. I think Jordan sent us something about they were walking past, was a video or a comment on our Facebook page, and there was her dog just kind of hanging out on the lawn looking for some kibble, and the dog on the veranda that she was passing was like going, bonkers. And she said, look at my dog. My dog's just kind of out there hanging out in the lawn, and the other dog's going bonkers. So, we do benefit from this in the long run.
Yes.
And the point is, like, would you change anything? Would you, have a different dog? No. No, I'm grateful that I have Maddie, because I often think what would have happened to Maddie if she'd gone to a home where they don't understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm grateful I have her, because they've also, I'm sure you feel this way about Penny, our dogs have taught us a lot. We've learned a lot from our dogs, I think. I've certainly, as a trainer, I've learned a ton from my dogs.
My entire life has changed. Almost my job mostly has changed. Everything has changed because of Penny. Yes, I mean, it's been a drastic change, but definitely one that I enjoy.
Yeah. So, if anybody out there is, discouraged right now because you've got a dog that, lunges and barks, and you're having trouble out there, taking them out for walks, you need to know that there is, light on the other end of the tunnel, and it is possible to totally have a really enjoyable life with a dog who has reactivity.
Yeah.
I guess that's our biggest that's probably our biggest PSA today, public service announcement, is that you can enjoy life with your reactive dog. So
yeah, and I mean the way our program works is you're putting in a lot of work to do it, but the work is play.
yeah,
so it really isn't. It's not as much a chore as you think it's going to be. So that feeling of like frustration and it's not fair and sadness and everything that you're feeling about this dog that you have that you can't do anything with, you build a really good bond and relationship with them. You come out the other end, it's great. I mean, it's not necessarily the perfect that you envisioned at the beginning, but you have something very different than what you thought maybe you were going to get. But in a lot of ways, to me, it's better.
Yes, absolutely. Isn't that what we say? We put the fun back in your walks or something.
It is. I mean, it is.
Yes, I think so.
And you get the support.
Yeah.
Like we get it. We get the frustration. We get how, it isn't fair. That's not what you went to get a dog for. We understand all of those feelings. But you do come out of it better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both of you, the dog and you.
Absolutely. Yes. Any comments or questions on any of this from anybody else? I haven't looked.
Susan, she says, it is so important to understand why. Thank you.
Oh, there
Scott.
it is.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I'm tripping over my words here. To understand, okay, so why the reactivity in order to develop a plan. I never thought I'd be doing agility with Sheriff in order to keep him to develop properly and successfully. And to keep his mom from crying. Because we get that though. Yeah. I mean, I know that I've cried over Penny, and I'm sure that other people in our program have cried over their dogs. I mean,
oh yeah.
You think that there's no solution, you're frustrated, you're embarrassed when you take them for walks. I mean, there's a lot of things. So
yes. Yeah. And we've also had people cry in the arena who didn't have reactive dogs. So it's
true. It's true. But we get it. Like that's, to me, that's a totally normal. Okay. See, that's a normal emotional response. You wouldn't. Yeah. And you have to respect the emotional responses from the people and the dogs.
That's right. There's nothing wrong with those responses because they're never wrong.
They're never wrong.
And Sheriff is also making massive progress. So
Sheriff is, I love Sheriff. He's an amazing dog.
Yeah, that's the thing. All our dogs are such great dogs. People see them as something else, but I've never actually met a reactive dog. And please, if anybody can come up with another name other than reactive, but I've never met one that wasn't a totally great dog.
Yeah,
and that's the thing, for sure. Any other questions? Anything else? There's just
nope. That's it.
That's it. Okay. Well, we're going to let everybody go, and hopefully we've, if anybody's been listening who has a reactive dog, we've made you feel a little bit better. We've you can benefit from what we've gone through, because we've certainly gone through it for a long time between the two of us. And also I have to say that if you do have a reactive dog, I'm hoping to start another one of our programs within the next week or so. So, feel free to get in touch and get some more information on the program. I'd be totally happy to talk to anybody about that at this point.
The program is called Walks That Work.
Yes, I keep forgetting to say that. Okay. Yes, because we wanted it to be positive, because at the end of it, hopefully your walks will work.
They do, yes. Yeah, I think it's been very good for almost everybody who's joined.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you, Celeste, for hanging out with me today, and thank you, Penny, because Penny's in the background.
Penny's always there.
Yeah. Mine's out helping her dad garden. So anyway, hopefully we'll be back next week with another live. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you do have any questions or any comments, put them in our comment section, please, and we will read them and I will answer them. And otherwise, we will see you next week. Thank you, and take care, everybody.